Hello, I'm Nan Simonson, and I've been musing lately about, I'll call it a situation. A while ago, I spent time with some family that I am crazy about, and I was with some kids that are not quite teenagers yet, and they were in my care for um, many days. And you know what I did? I made them crazy. As a matter of fact, if they never want to see me again, I wouldn't be surprised. I am so entrenched in a belief that we can direct our life in a positive way and bypass what we see as illness and physical, and I was going to call it ineptness. That's not the way to say it, but physical challenge. In 80% of the cases, we can affect that with choices that we make. I wrote about that in Aging Powerfully. The title of this video is, what is your mission? Now, missions, of course, can encompass so many areas of our life. But in my case, at almost 72, I was just turning 70 when this book was published. I wrote it at 79 and a half with the intent of turning 70 and having a mission for the rest of my life that would drive me. And it has. And that mission is to get the word out that when we make lifestyle choices, we can affect our lives for the rest of our years. We can do that in our 20s and 30s and 50s and 60s, and in my case, 70s, we baby boomers. But so what's the situation I'm referring to? For one, I've realized that I don't have the power to influence anyone beyond what they want, what they are used to, what they're comfortable with, and where they want to stay. I saw those kids and I thought, because I know you need to sleep more. That's when the brain processes. That's part of lifestyle as medicine. Where am I getting this stuff? Well, 4 years ago, I became a certified health and wellness coach, and I began my practice with a lifestyle medical practice called Lifestyle Medical in Riverside, California, and in Redlands, California. And I have seen firsthand, by running support groups on a weekly basis for 4 years, working with patients, seeing turnaround stories again and again and again, and being involved in many ways with lifestyle medicine and the College of Lifestyle Medicine, which I'm an affiliate with, and I'm taking courses in food as medicine. You can't unknow what you know. And the College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is a certifying body of physicians and medical practitioners, doesn't publish anything that isn't facts based and scientifically proven. And the pillars of lifestyle medicine are solid as stone. And they include that we've got to sleep enough. That's when our brain cleans itself out. That's also when we process things from the day, get rid of some, but also quite often anchor others so that the next day we actually may know more about what we were studying than we did when we went to bed, because the processes were happening. Is that important for a young mind and any mind? Absolutely. You got to get enough sleep. You got to have time to quiet your mind. That's called stress relief and relaxation. That's all part of that pillar of health. The time to quiet the mind, to meditate, to be mindful. Important for our mental functioning. We need movement. We've got to move. Our bodies are meant to move. Our lymphatic system has no other pump than our muscles and movement. And there's so much that's involved with that as it relates to aging with power. In addition to that, we need community. We need to have people in our lives. Loneliness can kill us as quickly as a disease can. Alienation can, because it affects the adrenals. The adrenals affect everything else in our body. And then nutrition, which is, it's not more important than the others, but it is the thing that we look at, because physically, what you see of a person has a lot to do with what's gone into that body. Um, Things we put on our skin, yes, but I'm talking right now about food. And so nutrition, and the College of Lifestyle Medicine encourages whole food, plant-based. Okay, so I go and I try to get kids to eat what they're not used to eating, that they don't want to eat. Chasing them around saying, won't you eat this orange and carrot? How about broccoli? How about it? Just stop. That didn't work. Okay, I come home and I'm in a bit of a funk because I managed that poorly. And I go to bring a cat in, my beautiful white Gracie. And because she's eating a lot and losing weight and very thirsty. What does that say? It could be diabetes, it could be renal, it could be thyroid. And went to the vet, and I'm sitting and waiting for 45 minutes, almost an hour, and people are coming and going, and I'm looking around me and I'm thinking, my gosh, our population, at least the people represented there, are not well. Well people look well. They move easily. They're flexible enough to sit down and stand up easily. They have color in their skin. I was surrounded by people who shuffled rather than walked. One person came in who could barely walk to her chair and sit down. And when her name was called, her pet's name, could barely stand up. She was rather large, but she also had a lot of movement and balance issues. But at one point, she was talking about her pet, and she said, well, you know, I'm 70 years old, and I have seen a lot, and um, this is why I am what I am. And we hadn't talked about health, but she was kind of dismissing after she got up, well, you know, I'm 70 years old. And I thought, man, that doesn't matter. Then I saw somebody that I know, that I've known for a long time, at a market, and she's trim and fit, and she was saying, boy, I follow you on social media, and I'm inspired and all of this. And she was looking really good, and I thought, oh, yes, it's making a difference. And she said, but you know, I got to tell you something. I recently had a stent, and then, or a while ago, actually a year ago, I had a stent, and now they're doing some other things because the blood's not flowing well. And I said, but are you eating? What are you eating? And she said, well, I'm really careful about the way I eat. And I said, are you having dairy and meat and saturated fats? And, well, yeah, but not a lot. But yeah, in other words, I thought, shoot, because those maladies are not necessary. 4 years ago, that was me. They wanted to do stuff, including medicate, and I said no. I went whole food, plant-based. They wanted to take my gallbladder out. It was a no good gallbladder, and I said no. I went whole food, plant-based. And my gallbladder's beautiful. Yeah, some people can live without it. My mother did, but she had problems her entire life living without that. Rheumatoid arthritis. I couldn't walk well. Now, I didn't shuffle. I hadn't gotten that bad, but things really hurt. And the autoimmune antibodies for rheumatoid arthritis, RA, were really high. And they wanted to immunosuppress and all of that. And I said no. And I can move like a champ. I'm taking off in 2 days for a half a marathon. So, gosh darn. So that happened. Then I saw somebody else a few days later who said we met in line, hadn't seen this person in years and years, and they didn't look that healthy. They were kind of puffy and kind of moved a little bit I'll say slowly and awkwardly, and said to me, well, I am a septuagenarian now. And I said, oh, what does that represent? I know octo is 8. And he said, well, I'm 70. And I thought, but it doesn't have to be that way. Oh, and that person said, I can see, because some people know and follow what I do on social media and my book, I can see that your health, how did he say, the way you care for yourself is really paying off or something. I thought that was very nice. But I thought, okay, obviously my mission, which burns in my soul, to make a difference, to help people understand that we can affect these things, is not as easy as simply believing it. It is something that one has to come to on their own, sometimes quickly, as I did. My husband and I flipped over from a uh, meat-based diet to completely no meat within a 3-month period of time. So that's not instant, actually, is it? But very quickly, we turned around with just a few exceptions. And some people need a lot longer than that. I was reading something recently. I'm part of the National um, Health Association, and we get their health science health science magazine. And this fellow who is pictured here was having terrible troubles in his 40s, digestion, palpitations, brain fog, um, uh, cardiovascular challenges already at 40. This is him now. I mean, just a completely different person. And he told his story. He said somebody that he knew who looked terrific came to his house, looked in the refrigerator, and said, you know, you don't look so great, and I can see why. Kind of nailed him. And as he said in this story, you would think that my next words would be, oh, this person was whole food plant-based and said I should be, but the person was paleo. But said to him, you need to stay away from processed foods. You need to stay away from fast foods. You need to stay away from saturated fats that just ooze out of foods, which they do in most takeout, restaurant, and oh, I'll say in many family recipes as it relates to meat and food preparation. He did that, and he said he lost 30 pounds. He, um, and he added fruits and vegetables, because paleo is heavy on fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, they avoid grains. Grains are an excellent food, but I'm going to leave that alone for now. But what he said is, when he saw, because this was his point, and maybe that's the thing, maybe people just don't realize that food has so much to do, lifestyle has so much to do with how we feel and how we look and how we live our lives. Because if you can't move well, if everything hurts all the time, and you can't run, and you can't walk fast, and you can't walk at all, and you don't get out, and you don't go places, and stairs upset you because they hurt your knees. And by the way, joints and joints going out aren't isolated from this whole conversation, because joints and damage to joints in many cases are inflammatory responses, and inflammation body-wide will affect every organ but also every joint, and can be mitigated. That's what I see with our patients all the time. People who come in ready for hip surgery, knee surgery, elbow or a shoulder surgery will go whole food plant-based for 4 months, and before they know it, their pain is so minor or non-existent that they no longer need the surgery. The inflammation is gone. So these things are far-reaching. But what he said, what is his name? What is your name? I can't find it fast enough. In any case, his name is Anthony. His first name is Anthony, and he looks fit and marvelous. And more importantly, it's not just the way you look. it's his health. He said, oh, this is what I wanted to say. He transitioned because what he did is the better he felt, the more he understood, oh, health has everything to do with the way I feel, the way I look, and food and these pillars have everything to do with health. And so he started studying it, and then he started studying the people that I'm going to mention in just a minute as evidence. And because anybody can say anything, there's a doctor out there that talks about lectins, that talks about drinking olive oil, never been published, never peer reviewed studies. It's all conjecture, and it's not even his certification. And anybody can say anything, as can I. But the people that I follow and my own experience, and of one and that of my husband, is that both of us came into this with challenges that would have gotten worse and worse and worse. Started 4 or 5 years ago, but was able to be mitigated. And within 4 years, it's been 4 years, but it happened much sooner than that. No, it's boom, boom, boom. That's not who and what we are now physically. And I just want to say to people, it doesn't have to be this way. And young kids, if you're grouchy and you're temperamental and you're short tempered and you're tired, you wake up tired every morning and you're fidgety and you can't concentrate, even that has something to do with food and sleep and exercise, though these kids, thank goodness, exercise like crazy. And community, they've got that community. But okay, so what he did is he started studying more, and the more he studied, the more he realized that all research shows whole food, plant-based is the way to not only prevent disease, but also reverse disease. Not just lose weight, because some people go into diets like keto to lose weight, to prevent diabetes. It's the opposite. You'll lose weight eventually, ultimately, or at least in the short term. You won't prevent diabetes because, I know, I tried keto for a year, and that's when my blood sugar was almost diabetic, because what has been found is that myocellular lipids, meaning fats in our blood and in our muscles, are what are responsible for insulin not getting into our tissues and therefore being ineffective. And that is the cause of diabetes, not our sugars, not our carbohydrates, because those of us that are plant-based are living on carbohydrates. I mean, what are fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, seeds, nuts, herbs, spices? They're all carbohydrate, meaning a cellulose-based food. And so what he did is he studied and studied and ultimately went completely whole food, plant-based, and now he teaches courses on it. So Anthony, thank you for that. So I'll just give you a brief rundown, and then I'm going to leave this subject alone before you, like these kids I'm talking about, say, enough, Nan, go find some other pulpit. Prevent and reverse heart disease. He and Dr. Dean Ornish, who wrote Undo It, were the first to find that they could literally reverse documented cardiovascular health. Nothing else does that. Nothing. And people who were dying of cardiovascular disease and clogged arteries without having to get stents, without having to get bypass surgeries, or after they had multiple stents and multiple bypass surgeries, were able to reverse their heart disease with a whole food plant-based, and in this case, no oil, no salt, no sugar diet, at least as prescribed by Dr. Esselstyn. Newer people, this took place in the 80s and 90s. Joel Fuhrman wrote Eat to Live. He's another giant in the nutrition world. His book is over there. And he's a nutritarian, meaning if you're going to eat it, eat the things that will give you the most nourishment. He even has a chart of by calorie count, what are the most nourishing things that you can eat? And the number one is kale. Lowest calories of the foods that can change your body overnight. Top 10, all plants. Then some seeds and nuts come in and some other things. Um, this written just 2 years ago, Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bolshewitz. He is triple board certified. He is an internist. He's a gastroenterologist. He is also board certified with the College of Lifestyle Medicine, because when he started studying dietary interventions to help people with gastritis, because he was tired of helping people that were coming right back sick, he started realizing that fiber makes all the difference for body-wide functioning, not just to get poop through us the way our grandmothers thought Metamucil should do, but the fiber affected the microbiome. The microbiome affects everything. There's one food and one food class only that has fiber, and that's plants. There is no fiber in any animal product. And when people say, oh, I need protein at every meal from animals because it makes me strong, it helps me build muscles, that is an absolute fallacy. They can get that all from plants. Alzheimer's solution. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be on this earth if I don't know I'm on this earth. I watched somebody go from the beginning of dementia until her death 5 years later, and I can't even imagine living like that, not even knowing your own children, not knowing where you were, not knowing who you are. And that's what happens with Alzheimer's. These two, Dean and Aisha Sherzai, wrote this book and are both here in California, in Loma Linda, one of our blue zones at Loma Linda Medical Center, and have their own lab, their own foundation to prevent Alzheimer's disease. And they both promote whole food, plant-based, because when they studied it, they found that was the way that they could prevent it. What they would like to prove is that they can reverse it, but only up to a certain point, because we're talking about brain deterioration in ways that just can't be reversed. But they're studying that now. Two prominent neuroscientists and physicians, they're not just scientists, married and determined. Their family and all of their patients work with whole food, plant-based diets. This one, Breast, the owner's manual, is written by Christy Funk. She's a breast surgeon, an oncology surgeon for breast health. She wrote this book, and she actually has an article in this Health Science magazine, again from the National Health Society or Association, which I'm a member of, and so I get the magazine. It comes out quarterly. She has an article in here too, and she said the same thing that actually Anthony said, and that was, I was on a Mediterranean diet. I was convinced that I was as healthy as I could possibly get. I was working with patients, and I decided that I was going to write and tell patients, write a owner's manual, and I was going to recommend to patients the best diet they should have. And the more I read, the more I came to understand that plants were the way to go, that animal products caused cellular growth in cancers, that saturated fats make us sick and make our blood flow more slowly, and so we don't heal as well. She went on and on in this, and she went home and said to her family, she has triplets, said to her family, we are no longer eating, well, what she said, this is one of her favorite stories. I went home and I brought everyone to the refrigerator. I flung open the doors and said, kids, we are going vegan. And they all said, yay. These are her words. And then said, hey, Mom, what's vegan? And that was the beginning of her going vegan. with all of this education, with all of this knowledge working with patients, because the proof was in her experience as well as her study, that a whole food plant-based diet will help people prevent cancers and prevent them from coming back. Then you've got your blue zones, the oldest populations of people living healthy in the world, the 5 of them, and we are in one of them. I am 15 minutes away from one of them in Loma Linda, California, the Seventh-day Adventist group. And then it's in Icaria, Greece, and Sardinia, Italy, and Okinawa, Japan, and the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. These people live longer, and they are predominantly plant-based. They aren't exclusively plant-based, and Anthony initially lost his weight, felt much better, wasn't exclusively plant-based, but his research told him, if you want to keep ratcheting it up, lose the saturated fat. Almost all animal product, including our beloved salmon, has saturated fat. The eggs, the dairy is one of the first that Dr. Funk says must go because it has estrogens, it has growth hormones that you can't have, especially because 85% of breast cancers are estrogen driven, and male breast cancers and prostate cancer. Michael Moss explains why it's so hard to stop in salt, sugar, fat. Michael Moss tells us how the food industry's hooked us by making foods that we can't resist because our brains and our dopamine centers light up with combinations, carefully engineered combinations of fat, oil, and sugar, which you will find everywhere that you buy processed foods. These packages that say healthy this and whole food that and natural this, you eat one, you can't stop eating them. You want them, and that's what you eat. That's what I saw with these kids. Instead of an apple, instead of an orange, instead of a carrot, instead of a salad, everything they wanted was something out of a bag or something prepared for them by a restaurant, all of which used processed foods and masses of oil, salt, and sugar. It's hard to know something and yet try to influence others when they're thinking that you're nothing but a nuisance. So I'm doing this to you. I'm a nuisance right now, aren't I? And then In Defense of Food, written by Michael Pollan, the conclusion of which he put on the front of the cover. You don't even have to read the rest of the book because it comes down to eat food, not too much, mostly plants. If as with Anthony, if as with a lot of people who can't do things that completely because it alienates them from friends, from people they know who live a certain way, and they're not convinced that going all out is necessary, then I would say to them, simply add more fruits and vegetables, grains and legumes, seeds and nuts. How about going one meal at a time? I got this book quite a while ago. As a matter of fact, it was written in 2016, and I read somewhere that I should read it. So I ordered it on Amazon, and I don't think I could get it. I don't know how or why I ended up getting it. I was just looking at the receipt because it was still in the book that I got from Amazon, and I got it for $6.99 used, and yet it's basically a new book, called The Book of Vegan-ish. This is really interesting. And she had people all through the book quoted with their take on their changes and their transitions in their diet. And one person wrote, oh, I hope I can find this quickly so I can say it to you. And one person wrote, oh man, and they were talking about every one of these little boxes throughout are testimonies, but one particular testimony, this is it, okay. Don't focus on perfection or some vegans saying you're not vegan enough because you do this or that. To me, being veganish is simply about doing your best to cause the least amount of harm to the planet, to the animals, to yourself. Isn't that a good one? And the author, Rachel Cohn, Cohn, actually named the book the book of Vegan-ish. And so what she does, and I think this is really interesting because I've done a bit of a deep dive into the book, she talks about why it makes sense to add plants to cut out meats, but don't have to do it all the way. She talks about the ethics as it relates to animals and the planet. She also talks about how to do it one step at a time. For example, she has these kind of foundational meal prep guidelines that are as simple as this is your protein, this is your starch, this is your veggie, this is your flavor boost, and you're going to have a great meal. And she talks about how about doing that once a day, just once a day, maybe once a week if that's even too much for you. I remember when we first thought about going on a whole food plant-based lifestyle, which included get enough sleep, pay attention, because I'm teaching people this. Pay attention, exercise every day, because I teach people this. I can't separate it. Don't lose connection with friends and family. Sorry, kids. And eat whole food, plant-based, or as close to nature as you can. And nature being grown, as close to grown as you can. We would have a meal. I remember our first meals that didn't have any animal product at all, and I would think, well, wait a minute. I've got to add milk because there wasn't protein. I've got to add cheese. There wasn't protein. I've got to add meat. There wasn't protein. There was protein in everything. Everything plant-based has protein. The least amount of protein in general in a food is a potato, and it's still 10%. We don't need more than 10 to 15% of our caloric intake as protein. And yet you've got beans, you've got nuts, you've got grains. You're getting plenty of protein in everything. My book, I wish I'd held it up, The Plant-Based Athlete. I've talked about that. These are people who are world class in their sport, who are completely whole food plant-based. Many of them, because I read that book, say, I don't even count my protein because I know if I'm eating whole food plant-based, I get enough. Some of them do use protein powders, but Robert Cheek, one of the authors of the book, who is hugely well-muscled, and he was a bodybuilder and weightlifter, says he doesn't even think about it anymore because it's clear to him that if he eats his whole food plant-based way, he is getting plenty of protein for muscle growth as well as general health. And then finally, all of this started, there was a Nathan Pritikin back in, what was that? Was that the 50s, 60s? Who had a center where people who had diseases that nobody could seem to mitigate would be sent to him, and he put them on this very strict whole food plant-based but a natural health regimen. They had to move, they socialized, there was community, there was movement, there was stress relief, there was lots of sleep, and there was whole food plant-based. That became the basis for the College of Life, or the lifestyle medical movement, and a man named Dr. Hans Deal created a program from that called the Complete Health or Heart Improvement Program, CHIP, CHIP, that later that H went to health rather than heart, Complete Health Improvement Program. And Dr. Hans Deal went all over the world teaching this program and got remarkable results. Well, this little book I got from him, I had the pleasure of meeting him and spending time with him several times. And he loves my message. He very much liked my book, and I felt great about that. He created this book a long time ago, what, 18, 19 years ago, Take Charge of Your Health. And it's a relatively short book, but what it's filled with, what, 25, 30 stories of people like Anthony, what they came with, what their health issues were, their whole food plant-based regime, which is always the same, meaning whole food plant-based, low oil, low sugar, and low salt, or none at all of those three. I, for one, don't use added oil in my cooking. And if you look at YouTube, Nan Simonson, the way you'd write it with a space between Nan and Simonson, it seems to work better that way. You'll find in my recipes that there's fat from tahini, fat from nuts, sometimes coconut milk, but there's no oils. There's salt, but not a lot, and there's no processed sugar. I sweeten things mainly with fruit, things like bananas and dates. But reading this, how can I not be the pest I've become? When you know and you've seen it again and again, people who are dying, who are miserable, who are saying goodbye to their families, taking one last chance to save themselves by going to, there's a health center that's referred to here that forces them for weeks or months, and for months or months and months. Joel Furman has a program like that in San Diego. One of my patients went, and it made a huge difference in her life, actually her entire attitude. And they're kind of locked away to make them do this, and the health comes, and the life gets turned around. So that's what I wanted to say. What is your mission? It could be anything, and it could be from one degree of health to having nothing at all to do with health. Social justice, gay rights, it could be anything. On the other hand, as I said, why am I so wed to? Why am I living my mission with my heart and soul? How can I not? How can I go out? Think about it. Anywhere you go, how can I not go out and look around me at people who are carrying way too much weight, which, by the way, is inflammatory. Even Christy Funk says if you want to prevent breast cancer by 50 to 60%, carry a normal weight. Excess weight and excess fat cells, they're all metabolically active. They're producing hormones, and they're causing the growth of tumors. So weight does matter. I know it's socially unacceptable to even talk about it, but by the same token, it absolutely matters. I have found in these 4 years that I don't have to think about it. I can eat massive amounts of delicious, really satisfying comfort food, mashed potatoes and beans and rice and whole grain breads with a delicious plant-based fillings and burgers and things, and maintain a slim, healthy weight and be well enough and strong enough at almost 72 to run 13.1 miles in a day from now, even with a hamstring pull. Oops. Okay, that's why, heart and soul, I can't not be vocal, even though I've realized that the power to make a difference in everyone's lives is in no way based on how much we nudge them, but based on examples we set, and then our perhaps influencing that way, and our being there for people with information when they're looking for it. So if you'd like to know more about my story, consider Aging Powerfully. I thank you for your time. I needed to get this off my chest, so if you're still with me, I've lasted this long. Yeah, it actually, I haven't posted a Facebook Live in weeks now because it made me wonder if it even mattered. And obviously today I decided I just had to. There were too many things coalescing, people, same kinds of stories, visuals that were like knocking down my door, that I couldn't just say, come on, let me tell you one more time what you can do for yourself in this way. I hope you're having a great day. I know I am. Take very good care of yourself, and I know it's important for thumbs ups and sharing and all of that. So if you can do that, that would be nice. And I'll be posting this on YouTube as well. Thank you. Bye bye.